Hey guys, Mcfixit here. We're going to take this Discmania Method Neoplastic and turn it into a really cool dyed disc. It's pretty translucent already, so I don't want to do too much dyeing on this one because I really do like even the swirls that it has in it. But we're going to end up using a stencil. This is kind of an inside joke, more for me. This is John Wesley, who created the Methodist movement. And so they used to get made fun of and be called Methodist. And so I thought method would be a fun inside joke for myself. And so we're going to remove some of the stamps. Then we're going to put a couple of edge rings around it with spin dye. Stick around to see all the tools, all the supplies, everything you will need to know how to do this or something different. You probably don't want to do an inside joke like I do, but maybe a different kind of stamp for yourself that you can put that stencil on and make it look really, really neat. Here are the tools and supplies you're going to need. We're going to need whatever disc you want. Obviously, the clearer the disc, the wider the disc, the easier this is. You're going to want some kind of plate because we're going to pour some acetone. You don't want that to get everywhere. You want your stencil. It can be any kind of stencil. This is about 2.5 inches. I actually did it on a Cricut, which will make it a lot easier. You're going to want vinyl. That's what I put the stencil on, and this is Oracle 651. This stuff is really good. It is an outdoor vinyl that actually can last up to 5 years without like really peeling or anything. You're going to want transfer paper. You're going to want tape, magic eraser, acetone, whatever dyes you want to use. We're going to be using Chem and dye. I'll have a card right here. We're going to use fire red and black. Black is actually iDye poly. But I use the same formula that I had on that card. Acetone. You're going to want, sometimes I use a marker, a ruler, plenty of different paint brushes. And then this is a little tool that I use all the time to help get the stencil off. And Cricut makes this. I'll have a link in the description, but you can use a credit card. Anything kind of flat that kind of lets you smooth out it. If you don't have a Cricut, this does not mean you can't do this project. It just means it's a little harder. Get yourself an Exacto Knife Set. This is one of my favorite ones. I've had this for probably 15 years. This is the blade you'll want on it, or one of the ones that is very well angled, and it works really well. Then you're going to go ahead and take your Mr. Clean eraser, some paper towels, and your disc, and go take that to the sink. And I don't know if I mentioned you do need a turntable if you're going to spin it. You can use some other things, but turntable does work the best. So take that, go ahead and clean your disc really, really well. So go ahead and turn on some warm water. Get that magic eraser nice and wet, and go over the whole disc and the rim with that magic eraser. So just make it all ready so we can do the dye. Rinse it off one last time. Grab some paper towels and just go over it just like that. Let this thing set once you get all done drying it, just to make sure it's all ready to go. So now that you're back, you got your disc all clean. I like to go ahead and set up my workstation, so we don't use this till a little bit later. And so I'm going to get the turntable out of the way. We have a Cricut dyed, so I'm going to move that out of the way. I'm going to move the acetone back a little bit, put the tape and these things over here, because the first thing we're going to actually do is get to this acetone, and I just don't want to ruin anything at this point. So go ahead and take the time, set up your space. Going to get a couple extra paper towels ready to go. And I want to go ahead and remove the top stamp and the evolution wording. This is a little trick I like to do just to help preserve the stamp a little bit better. I have noticed if you just put down the vinyl, sometimes you can mess it up. And so this is not going to really protect it that much. You really need to go ahead and get yourself some vinyl. And I just kind of guesstimate what that needs to be. So I just kind of take the vinyl and just kind of put it up. Since we're only getting this portion and above, you don't need a whole lot. Go ahead and peel back. And you're going to put this just on the other side of the blue tape. And press down. You may get some air bubbles, not a really big deal. This doesn't really matter that much. But I like to go ahead and smooth out the edge. I don't care about the rest as much, just that edge. And so if you were just to put the vinyl down, sometimes, especially with Discmania, I love their disc. Their stamps are not the highest quality, especially on this NEO line. And so this helps preserve that a lot. I like to put it up this direction and allow gravity to naturally drip anything down. And when I'm wiping the stamp, I want to be going downward, not upward, because this edge here still can gather some of the black. And so you do want to be careful with that. Go ahead and open up your acetone container. This tool works really well for doing that if you don't have a flathead screwdriver laying around, especially if you're wearing gloves. So I just put a little bit on, and remember, try to wipe down as much as you can. And I just kind of rotate the paper towel really quickly. Wiping down as much as you can, trying to get anything off that edge. And also, if there's anything else on your disc, this is a great time to do it. I did wash this disc, but it is a kind of used one. It's fairly new. It's at least new to me. So you can see like some tree rash right there. Or somebody, aka me, has probably hit a tree. So that is done right there. Go ahead and take your Dawn dish soap and water. Go ahead and get a spray of this. I don't know if I put this in the description. You want a bottle of Dawn dish soap and water, and sometimes even just a spray bottle of water as well. Sorry if I did not put that in the introduction. That really is helpful. So once you've done the spray bottle, then you just get the water. So you've done the soapy part. This just helps clean everything up, making sure you're ready to dye. Okay, now you just go ahead and take this off. And you've been able to help preserve your stamp a little bit more because you put this tape down, which is really paint friendly, versus the other that will tear some stuff off. Boom. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm actually not going to do the stencil yet. I like to do the stencil as one of the last things because I want to go ahead and get my edge lines really good on this one. And with the edge lines, so I'm going to kind of sneak ahead a little bit. I'm going to make this line red around, and at least at this point. I may change it before I get there. Sorry, I said that wrong. I'm going to make John Wesley all black in this line red, and I want to put red lines around, one red line and one black line around the edge. And so we're going to go ahead and get our turntable out and get set up for that next step. So remove the stuff you don't need, or at least put it well off to the side. Give yourself plenty of room to work. This is sometimes the hardest part of the whole thing, is getting this centered up. And so I put a Sharpie line around. I believe I used a Wombat. I use the Wombat a lot because it's a really big disc to help get me centered. And you have to kind of look over top of it. And I know this is not probably the best angle for that. So I'll kind of scoot this around a little, get you a little bit better angle. And it is hard to get this thing perfect. And if it's a little wobbly, you do want to move it. But that edge line does help a lot. And so I just kind of took a Sharpie and I just kind of held it with the Wombat once I got it perfectly centered. So I'm going to go ahead and take off my colors. So this is Fire Red right here. This is that Pro Chem and dye. And then here's the black. I put these on extremely tight to help preserve, and sometimes it makes it really difficult to get them off. So you'll have to just bear with me a second. There it is. If you do not put these on tight afterwards, you will regret it because you won't be able to do near as much. And so I'm going to do a red on the outside here, and I'm going to come back and do a thin black line right where the rim is. So red on the outside, and you want to go from lighter to darker on this. Use your lighter color first. So I literally am just going to hit the edge. And it's going to be kind of hard to see because it is the edge I'm doing. And the goal of this, as it's spinning around, that you try to find where you didn't hit the last time. It goes about a third of the disc, and make sure you don't put it down on the same spot you did the previous time. It's okay if you do, but it just tends to not work as well. And sometimes I even go this direction with it, just kind of straight vertical to get that edge. Just take your time, go slow. There's no rush. Because you want this to look really good. Spin die is one of the harder things for me to do. I can do the other ones really easy. Spin die takes a lot more precision. And so I probably won't talk as much in this section as I do in some of the other sections. It's just because I'm not as proficient in this. I can do it, but... And I stop it every now and again to see what it looks like, and you can kind of turn it manually as well. I don't know if I mentioned this. Don't go all the way down in the bottom of your dish, your mason jar. Just get right on the top. You don't want any of the dye that maybe has not mixed in with the acetone. Okay. The next thing you're going to do is go ahead and get your acetone out. This is just a little jar, and actually I'm going to dump it. I have a wad of paper towels under here, so I'm going to dump it and get clean for this video, which is really good to do every now and again. It's going to get really dirty in this video because of the dark colors, but I don't really care that much. So got clean acetone. Oh, I popped the whole top off. Did not mean to do that. I've done that a couple of times on this one. So you don't have to have a whole lot, just a little. Go ahead and wash that paintbrush off really good. Okay. This one is the one I think that is always the hardest. I want to get right where this rim line is. And so I'm using my hands kind of as a guide, and even this little, I can't remember what they call this, the arm, I guess, on the record player. I always feel like I'm never shaky until I do this, and I'm super shaky every time. See how that looked. The black normally works really well. You normally don't have to do a whole lot of layers. I think that was only 2 layers. Okay, that part is done. Go ahead and acetone that away. So go ahead and take this and go wash your disc now that you've let that sit. So now you have your stamp. You could get a big piece of contact paper like this, but I'm going to go ahead and cut kind of a smaller piece for this project. And so you're going to grab your contact paper. I like to use that big one when I'm doing kind of new projects that are going to use the whole disc as a stamp or as a stencil. But with these smaller ones, sometimes it is just a little easier to just go ahead and get a little piece. And this tool helps a lot, especially if you have gloves on, to be able to get that off. There it goes. And so this transfer paper works really well. You just stick it over the part of the image, just like that. And then you're going to want to go ahead and press down on it really well. Another thing I like to do is actually try to kind of find where center is on this, and just kind of put some lines just like this to help me kind of have a good idea and grasp of where the center line would be. You can use a flat edge on this, but it doesn't matter that much, so I just like to kind of draw some lines there. You're going to get the back really good too. And so the next thing you do is go ahead and grab this, and you're peeling the next layer, and hopefully as you pull this, it'll all come off just like that. That doesn't always happen that well. Now is the moment of truth. You got to figure out where you want this to go. And actually, a lot of times, I think I'm actually just going to use this as a good little template to show me where the center line is on this. So you kind of line this up nice and square. And then you have to make sure you get the right direction. And you have to remember kind of where you want this to go. About that height. Because you really only get one shot at this. And go ahead and put it down. And then this is really where you want to get all the air bubbles out. And you can save this for a later project, so make sure you save the paper, put it on the sticky side, or not the sticky side, the shiny side. If you put it on the dull side, especially with this kind, it does not work really well and you'll lose that. So now that you have that, go ahead and flatten it out, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of peel this around the edges. Going to set up underneath the disc, so just go ahead and grab your paper towel. And I'll probably paint it like this, but for the design to pull off, I'm going to go ahead and leave it like this. And then you're just going to try your best to pull up the parts that need to come off and leave down the rest. And it's not going to probably work perfect because this is such a complicated stamp, but we're going to try our very best to keep as much of the stuff that is supposed to stay down. And you can kind of come back. I'm actually probably going to get it a little better. The more complicated the stamp, the harder this becomes. Because even if your Cricut is good, or you are really good at getting the different parts off, sometimes it does not go perfectly according to plan. But actually, it's going pretty well so far. So I'll pull it up a little closer to kind of show you exactly what I'm doing. You're just pulling the different areas that need to come off that are going to eventually be black. Wow, that actually worked really well. Sometimes these stamps and with the cuts, it does not work as well as you would want it to. Then we're going to get his little chin piece out right now. Now then, going to work on his lips next. This is really where you have to have a good pick. I know Cricut makes one as well, and I can't find mine, so this is kind of my substitute for that. And this is kind of his eyebrows and eye area. Holy cow, that looks sweet. Looks only like I have one little part left, and then I'll go back over and make sure I don't have anything else. That I'm missing. I think that's it. So that turned out really awesome. Typically I have a little bit more struggle. This one was going to be a little bit of a challenge for me to do today. I am saving that extra line around it. As you can see here, I'm going to do this black and then followed by this with red. And so I don't want to accidentally spill some black on the other. And I'm going to go one more time, just really lightly over this, just to make sure it's nice and secure. The edges are down really good. And sometimes I even just put my hand and put pressure on it too. Oh, I did see one part that didn't pull up right here, just like his hair on the side. And so just pushing even down, giving it that pressure does help get any last little bit. But that is going to turn out so cool. I cannot wait to dye this in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and pull all these little pieces off my hand as well. Don't get any of that where you don't want it to go. Then we're going to go ahead and set up our station right now. So I'm going to get the acetone open. And go ahead and get the black open. And go ahead and get the red open. That red liner is starting to die on this one. I've used it for many, many, many projects. So this is where you want to be careful. I'm going to put it this direction so I'm not coming over the disc. And just get your paintbrush, just barely dip it in. And go slow, take your time. I mean, you don't want to go too slow, but take your time. And just paint away. We're going to do multiple layers of this. You don't want to put it on too thick, because again, we're going to put layers on it. And if you do it too thick, sometimes the acetone can eat through if you have really finite pieces, kind of like I do here. So I don't want to go too thick. And it's fine if you kind of paint the white, all of the white parts. It doesn't really matter that much. Okay, I normally let that sit a couple of seconds before I begin the next one, or at least start where you started the first time, which is what I'm going to do right now. As you notice the second time, it seems like, man, that was a lot more dye. Well, you've already kind of put the first layer on, so the second layer gets darker, the third layer will get darker. You can kind of choose how many layers you want it to be. Don't go, I mean, you can't really go too crazy, but I mean, I don't try to waste a lot of dye as well. We'll start back down at the beginning again. And so really with the last one, I'm more just trying to drag to make sure it's all kind of the same consistent color. So that's what that kind of looks like at the end. It's kind of hard to see, but you want kind of all the same consistent. Now there is a little bit of lighter color where his face is, because I didn't paint that one much. I'm going to do one more touch up over here. Seems like some of the hair follicles didn't show up real well, so I'm going to make sure I get in there and get those good. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and wash it in the acetone really well, and then I just kind of dry it off on the side, and then I go ahead and I take some paper towel and get that spray bottle with just water in it. So it's just water. Spray it a couple of times. And I just kind of make sure I'm not going to get dye all over the place. And then I go ahead and peel back the next layer, which is just that outer circle. You know, I don't like how that looks at the top. Feel free to examine it at that point. And if you don't like how it looks, you know what, take your time. Go ahead and do it again. In fact, I think I'm going to let this thing sit for a few minutes and just make sure it really absorbs that black really well. And then I'll come back and rinse it off like I just did, but I'm going to give it a couple of minutes this time. So go ahead and wash it in your acetone. Then I'll be back in like 5 minutes, and we'll just be a few seconds on here, but 5 minutes. Okay, it's been 5 minutes. I'm going to do the same thing again. Put a little water in. And I'm just kind of touching it up to make sure I don't get it all over myself. And then we will wash this disc one last time. And you're going to go ahead and pick out, I believe it's called wheedling. I'm not a crafter, so it's about the craftiest that I get, but I think it's called a wheedling tool. I call it a pick because I do a lot of things and I use picks for them. So make sure you throw that little piece away, get it off of your gloves. Just try to make sure I load that up with red. And you're just going to go around it. And we'll do this a couple of different times. So you're just wanting to go inside the grooves. You really don't want the black to touch in case there's anything wet still on it, but it shouldn't be, because when I cleaned it off and let it sit, that should have done everything it needed to do. So I like that right there. Go ahead and rinse off in the acetone so you can use that paintbrush for a later project. Go ahead and seal these up, and then we're going to do the same thing and let it sit another 5 minutes. And when we come back, we'll peel off the sticker, then go wash it up and show you what it looks like. Okay, this thing is set for 5 minutes. We're going to do the same thing again. Just going to use the same paper towel, get some more water, and perfect. So we're going to go ahead and take this off, which can be sometimes tricky with gloves on, but I would highly encourage you to still wear gloves. Oh, about knocked the camera over there. That was not good. Okay, here's the beginning of the moment of truth. So you want to just not cut into the disc, but just use that tool and just keep going at it. Once you get a little chunk up, sometimes you can just begin to pull it, just like that. So that gives you the outline. And then now we're going to go after the face. When I'm doing this, you can see I'm not really digging into it. I'm just pulling simply along where that vinyl is laid down for the stencil. Don't feel like you gotta like dig into your disc, because that's not at all what you want. So just keep taking your time, just keep going at it. I do notice one little kind of, I don't even know if I'd call it a mess up. It's where the Discmania stamp was. If you hit it at the wrong light, it kind of doesn't look as good as I thought it was going to, but that's just because it's got the, you're just going to go in each one of these. You don't want to go deep into your disc, you're just simply pulling that vinyl up. So I'm not digging into the disc, just pulling the vinyl out and up. And this part may take the most time out of the whole thing, because there are so many little nooks and crannies. And sometimes you have to find the right light to be able to even see them. And I'm sure I've already missed something somewhere that I'll have to go back and touch up. You can kind of go in whatever order. This is just the way I chose to do it. Sometimes I jump around a little bit because I get sick of working in one area, and another area may look a little easier. But there, as you saw with the stamp, there are so many little cutouts. So just take your time. And sometimes it's helpful to have this thing kind of close so you can see what you might have left. And again, sometimes it will not take all the way. So you just got to kind of bear with that when doing these. Especially these little small ones. I'm sure it's going to mess up on at least one or two of the smaller ones. Shouldn't say mess up. Just not come out the way exactly I wanted, because this is already turning out super awesome. Forgot his eyebrows. And I think there's still some nose I haven't got yet. Sometimes you get on other parts of your disc too, and you got to clean those off. So just take your time, go back over it a couple of more times. I'm sure I've missed something else on it too. Just because, again, the detail on this, sometimes it's not even one that's like really on there, and sometimes it is, like that one. I think that's it. Okay, we're going to go ahead and wash that up and go ahead and show you what the final outcome looks like. So it's beginning to rain out here, so I got to go kind of quick. You're just simply going to take and spray it all down. That's just Dawn dish soap and water. Then go ahead and rinse it all off. Then dry it off. And you're ready to go throw that disc. That looks sweet. Turned out really, really, really well. Hey guys, I wanted to show you this back inside just to see how cool this is. Worked really well, and I think it looks really, really sweet. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment if you do have any questions below. There's a lot of links in the description, and I'll try to pin a comment as well with links on how I did all of this and all the tools and supplies that you need. Thank you guys so much for watching.